Hello everyone, welcome back to this episode of Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies. I am today joined with Mr. Cillian O'Grady. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks, Jez. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for asking. What's your current views on the vacant role at manager's role at Norwich? Then, what are your thoughts?
I wouldn't be putting any money down. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
so many speculations and rumours. It's always great fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they're keen to get someone in place before next week's game against Birmingham, aren't they? So
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, be interesting to see what occurs. But we are here today to talk to Mr. Matt Jarvis, former Canary. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Apologies for the backdrop. It's getting decorated, so
yeah, looks good. Looks good. I think if we know any painters and decorators, we'll send them around for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my handiwork's not as good.
No. Perhaps you'd just like to, man that needs a little introduction. But if you'd like to just introduce yourself, what your connection is with Norwich, and perhaps what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I'm a former player. Was there. Had an unbelievable start, and it just, unfortunately for me, injury sort of took its toll, and it was a ridiculously difficult and hard time. But a great club, loved it, and just wished that I was able to be fit a lot longer, to be able to have played for the Canaries for a lot more games than I did.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll probably be touching upon a little bit later on. But I do remember, was it your debut against Bournemouth, was it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yourself and someone Cillian will know quite well, Robbie Brady. I think you both made your debut that game, if I remember correctly. But, was it 4-0 against them? And it was a great, as you say, it was a great start, wasn't it? But we'll touch upon the other stuff later on. And
yeah.
What are you up to? What are you up to these days?
So doing a fair bit, really. So I do media and punditry and co-commentary. That's sort of my main role. I'm an ambassador at West Ham, so I do a lot of work there with the club on match days. I do their foundation. I do some other weird and wonderful stuff. I mentor at the Wolves Academy, which is a really important role for me. That I feel these kids, they are kids. They're first year youth team, so it's a really difficult time for them. And then I'm an advisor to a sports psychology app called Unlock, which is going to be, or is, a lot of players are using it now to help, and teams are now using it, so it's a really valuable tool. I'm a director in a golf events company, which is amazing. Like that's just a really cool outer source. I've done quite a few. I've done my CEO of a sports organisation course as well, so trying to look to potentially go into that side of things. I do lots of keynote speaking and other aspects, so trying to keep busy as much as possible while also enjoying myself and trying to play a little bit more golf.
Very good. It's no surprise, Matt, I suppose you ended up in football. I mean, the sport in your family, I believe your parents were superstar table tennis players.
Yes, I was going to say it wasn't necessarily football, but yeah, incredible. Really, I look back and I can't believe that they played, of all things, they played table tennis. But really privileged for me to have them, to be able to understand what potentially I would be going through, or how my I suppose younger days were. And I think they just instilled a few things that dedication and hard work and. That professionalism, I think that's come from them.
And like you, obviously, I saw that you played quite a number of sports when you, I suppose, growing up. What made you choose football? I mean, how did that come about?
Oh, every kid wants to play football, don't they? I think that's it's the number one. But yeah, absolutely. I think, and I do it with my son. I've got a 9-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, but. He doesn't just play one sport; he plays all of them, because I think as a kid, you need to experience everything. You pick up loads of different skills from other sports, and then if you want to then go down the one single sport route, then fine. At some point in some age, you can then go into it. But yeah, I did football, I did swimming, I did athletics, cross country. One of them really annoying kids at school that was actually good at all of them. So I can it was great for me, but I can understand people would have been a bit annoyed.
And was there a moment when you thought to yourself, I can actually be a professional footballer? I mean,
to be honest, you hope. I mean, football was always my number one. Whenever I did all the other things because I loved it and I really enjoyed competing. That was, I think, my biggest strength, especially actually at that age. And I'm talking, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think I actually enjoyed the individual sports more than the football, like team sports, because I knew in individual I could rely on me, whereas team sport, there's so many other factors that come into play. But I always hoped that, if I could become a professional footballer. And, I always used to do silly things in my mind where, if I was just practicing or training in the garden, if the ball would like go past me and then I would look and I'd pick something that I would be like, right, if I can get the ball before that, like white line or that stone, then I'm going to make it as a professional footballer, and I'll be sprinting and trying to stop the ball. But if there's a moment that I thought I wouldn't be able to pick one moment for definite. I think there's many moments in your younger days where I was in a really good sort of Sunday league team, and then I picked up in an academy at 9, so I was in academy football as well from 9 years old, and that changes things, I suppose, because each year friends move, friends get released, and it starts to become a lot more heightened and understand that actually this is difficult and it's relentless. I think each year I sort of made it a little bit further. Each year that went by, you start trying to believe, but I actually got released at 16, told I wasn't good enough. So that was that was a difficult transition to then be able to have to go on trial and try and work my way back. And I think for me, it was when I got offered a youth team contract at Gillingham. That was the biggest turning point for me. It was like a light bulb moment, and that's what if I could maybe say that's the moment that I suppose that I thought, right, there is my moment. I think I've got a chance here.
And you had a brother who played as well. Like, were you very competitive with each other, or?
Understatement. I think we're a very competitive family. But yes, I had an older brother, which it was brilliant for me, because I think if you're the younger brother, you've got the older sibling that you're constantly playing football with, competing with. You're always up against the stronger, older kids. So I think you develop a lot quicker. I think you handle the physicalness earlier. I mean, I was a small, skinny little boy, so I had to learn to sort of look after myself on that side of things. But he was brilliant with me, and he was at Millwall for similar sort of years as me. But unfortunately, when he got released at 16, he had 3 knee operations, and it didn't really go for him. But he's been ridiculously supportive of me and my career. So I have very different help and background from family and friends, but it was a massive plus for me to have the older sibling to sort of practice with and have that strength, and older sibling and all of his mates that I grew up playing with.
Brilliant. I mean, looking back at your youth career, then is there anything that you'd probably do differently, would you say, or is that difficult to answer?
No, honestly, I wouldn't do anything differently. I think I truly, I believe everything happens for a reason. The way that my career has been, I don't think I couldn't have done any more to get the best out of my ability, about my career. I love the way that I did it. Looking back, I didn't enjoy it at the start when getting released and told you're not good enough and all that, but to actually then, at 16 to be told you're not good enough, to then be 17 and then playing in the first team in the championship. It's a big turnaround. So I wouldn't change anything with regards to youth team. The only thing I'd want to sort of give myself is more confidence. But that's, it wouldn't everyone. And I think, as a kid, at 16, moving out of home, living in digs, you want to be, or even younger than that, you want to be more confident. You want to back your own ability. And I think that's maybe an area that if I could have changed anything, just give myself a little bit more confidence in my own ability.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because we spoke to a few ex-professionals on this channel, and they do say similar things. And I think it's it's probably one of those things, isn't it, where look, and I can relate to this. I'm sure Cillian can. Where you look at your sort of younger self all the time, don't you? And go, oh, you know, I've now got the ability to kind of analyze it in my head at the age of I am now, you know. And I think it's back then you just didn't. But I think that's a really important process when you are younger, having the people around you that support you, whether that be your parents or your coach or any other sort of person at the football club that you're at the time. And I mean, is there anyone that you could sort of say helped you along the way within the sort of football realm?
Honestly, everyone. I was, as I mentioned, I had my parents that were there, that constant figure. They pretty much went to every single game I ever played. So yeah, home and away, they travelled everywhere. I had my brother who was ridiculously helpful and sending me messages every morning before the game, just little things to keep me going. I met my now wife when I was 19, and she's been on this roller coaster for the whole way through. And she her the way her mind is and her family's mind, that her mum's a psychotherapist. She's very much on that side of things, so she was open to talking about everything. So I've had lots of help with regards to that. There's definitely been coaches and players that have helped me, but each person and each coach or teammate, I suppose, has just come at the right time in my career. When I first got in the first team at Gillingham, I had quite an older squad of players. There was a few youngsters in there, but quite an older squad of players that they really helped me. They really looked after me, especially on the pitch. But taught me little bits and pieces during training that yes, you should do this, no, don't do that. And you grow up and you learn really quickly. But I think the biggest development, I suppose, in my career would when I've probably been at Wolves with Mick McCarthy, Terry Connor. I had Tony Daly as my fitness coach as well. Incredible winger, similar sort of player to what I was, and he worked on me in the gym and extra sprinting and agility runs, and I think that's the biggest development, I suppose, that I had with regards to working as a person in a team and also as an individual, finessing my skills. So I would definitely give them a shout out for that.
You've worked with some big clubs. You obviously mentioned two of them already, Wolves and West Ham. Are there any funny or unusual moments you could share with us about your times there?
God, funny. I mean, always funny times are Christmas do's. They're always great fun. I've got quite a few good stories about that. I'll tell you the first one. I have used this one before, but it is a good one. He's a guy called Graham Stack. I don't know if you know. He was a goalkeeper. Yeah, he was at Wolves. He came on loan at Wolves, and he was. I mean, what a great goalkeeper, first and foremost. By the way, fantastic goalkeeper. But we come back from a Christmas do. Actually, I was going to say this one. No, I'll say another one. It's even better. So we all went out as a squad of players, and we had a couple of younger guys that hadn't been out with us before, so they came with us. And as we went into this place, Stacky sort of said to one of the younger kids, "Right, look, here's £1. He said, I want you to hide it on yourself. I'm going to go off. I'll come back, and in 5 minutes, I'll come back and find it. If I can't, I'll give you 20 quid." And the guy was like, "Brilliant." So anyway, Stacky went off. The kid just put it in his mouth and swallowed the £1.
Oh,
and Stacky come back about 10 minutes later, and then was just like putting his hands all over his face and touching him down a little bit, like patting him down, and then all over his face again. And it was like, "Oh no, brilliant, well done." Gave him 20 quid and walked off. And the kid was buzzing. But what Stacky had done is he'd gone outside to all the cars and put his hand on all the exhaust pipes and covered his face in black like exhaust things, and he was absolutely covered. And then about 5-10 minutes later, one of the bouncers come over and said, "Look, mate, you need to go and wash your face." it was fantastic. But just that's a little snippet of what life was like with Graham Stack. It was great fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he certainly carried. I mean, he was at Arsenal, wasn't he? I think previously, and I've heard a few. Funny enough, I was watching a few things on X just this morning, and a Graham Stack story came up, and I can't remember what it was, but it was
It's probably the other one I was going to say about him sat on the back of a Harley Davidson on the M6 on the back of a trailer when we were coming back from another Christmas do, and then all traffic went off, and he had to he stayed on this Harley on the back of a trailer, and he had to jump off and in the middle of the M6 to jump back in our minibus. Hilarious stuff.
Yeah, I think the one I saw was he was dealing. Let's just say he was dealing with a couple of pitch invaders.
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with Stacky on that scenario either.
Definitely not. So obviously we are Norwich fans. So let's talk a little bit about your time at Norwich. Is there any sort of standout moments or any sort of anecdotes from the dressing room?
Yeah, 100%. The standout moment for me was my debut. The season before I was at West Ham, and I hadn't played as many games as I would have liked. The system changed, and Sam decided he wasn't going to play with wingers. So I had this determination that I didn't want that to happen like the season before. I worked extremely hard, had an unbelievable pre-season at West Ham, played in the first 5 games of the season, which was when Slaven Bilic took over. But I didn't start. I'd come on in all of them, and I had that I did not want the season before to happen again. And obviously the opportunity to go to Norwich was too good for me to turn down, and I wanted to go and prove everyone like this is what I can do. This is what it was all about. And I just remember that first game just being electric, scoring, cutting in, whipping it into the top corner. You can see in all the images of which I've got, just the passion and the relief, I suppose, and just the excitement was so real. It was amazing experience, and I just thought that this is going to be unbelievable. I was on loan. This was going to be incredible. And then I scored in my second game in the cup against West Brom. Same sort of thing, little give and go into the top corner. And I was just like, this is going to be amazing. It's a fantastic group of lads that I knew a couple. Got a really good relationship with Robbie Brady, as you mentioned, who came, and Martin Olsen. So I had Robbie or Martin behind me, which was, again, just such a good synergy between 2 or the 3 of us, I suppose. And that moment, I just remember the debut in the West Brom game was just massive highlights for me. And unfortunately for me, it was one of them really annoying things that I didn't really do anyway, which was tackle. And I decided to tackle Yaya Toure, which was a terrible decision. And that's what unfortunately started everything up.
Talking about that, Matt, obviously there's a lot of highs in football, but obviously there's the lows, and injuries obviously been a big one. And in Norwich, we know all about injuries, and we seem to be plagued by them regularly. Can you talk us through what the process is like to recover from an injury, both physically and mentally?
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, unfortunately for me, it's where it all started. I had 4 operations in 3 years, just terrible. But the process is depending on what If I just speak for my own personal ones, because it's just I suppose easier. My first one was I had my medial reattached. So first of all, you have your operation, then you can't walk, you can't do lots of things. So you can't drive, so you're stuck. Either getting lifts or off, any of the lads, or you're getting taxis or in and out. All your muscle disappears because you're not using it. You can try all of these different things, and you try your best to keep it going, but your muscles just go. So then each sort of day you go in, how's this, what this, physios are testing all of that, and it's each day you're like, no, it's exactly the same. So mentally you're already in a difficult position where, one, you're probably still in pain. Each day you're testing it and there's no improvement, and it's a slow process, and you have little goals that you hope to get to, but then even if you don't meet that first goal, you have a little setback. It's draining. It is really draining, and as a player, everyone comes into the physio room just for a laugh and a joke, but then they all leave and they all go to training, and then when you then go into the gym and do all of your monotonous rehab stuff that you can't know, you're trying to push a leg weight that's absolute nothing on, and you're struggling and you can't do it, and you're looking out of the gym and you're looking at everyone else train, and it's awful. So there's that side of things, but it is the first sort of I would say six weeks or so. It's just repetitive. It's you're not able to do anything really. So you're in there all day, just icing, trying to recover, trying to do as much and as possible as you can. But it's, you're not really seeing any improvement for them for 6 weeks.
In those early days, then, do you think you may never be able to do it again or play again? Or
I mean, do you know what? Sometimes I would say no, that doesn't really come into your mind when you on that. For me, it didn't on that first one. You just always think, oh yeah, because physios, a lot of these operations, they've done it millions of times. Players have done it, and they know, right, if you're having that up, that's 10 to 12 weeks, or that's 6 months, or 3 weeks, or whatever it is. They know. So you think, you don't ever really think on that first initial time. You think, oh, okay, it's 3 months. Okay, cool. So first 6 weeks can't do this, then and then 3 months you're back in. So you pinpoint a game that you're going to try and get back in, and it sometimes goes to plan, and it sometimes doesn't, and that's the really difficult side of things. And I think at the time I got injured, then I come back, and then I got another injury, and I got back and got another injury, and I picked up more on my way back to fitness. So mine was slightly different. Mine were all impact injuries, which the first two were impact injuries from tackles. My second op was when I got my first training session back in with the team, was where I then hurt my ankle. And then because I'd been out for so long, I was like, no, I'm going to stay because I just want to get back and playing. And then I was having injections and other things to try and keep myself going. And ultimately, it wasn't good enough, and I couldn't move. And then I had to have an operation, which was a microfracture of my ankle, which was supposed to be about 6 to 8 weeks, turned into nearly 11 months. And I got told to retire by the specialist. I got offered a pay up by Norwich to go, which I turned it all down because I was desperate to get back and play. The reason I bring that up is because when you then I was getting a lot of I was getting peppered by the socials, I suppose, for being injured all the time. But I wanted to, you bring up how does that affect players, and I think clubs should. I know it's difficult, but I think clubs should do a lot more of like the videos to show what players are doing and behind the scenes, how they're doing. Can they walk? What are they doing to help the walking? And once they can walk, what are they doing in the gym? And then what are they doing with their fitness? Because you have to do like ski ergs and all this to try and keep your fitness levels up. So you can then, they should try and do like a little story. I know it's really difficult with all of the injuries, but if you've got one sort of longer term injury, I think the behind the scenes would really benefit, because you can fans would actually be able to see what players go through, and the good days and the bad days, because you can go out and try running and then it doesn't go well, and then there's the disappointment, there's the pain, there's the heartache, there's that side of things. That I think fans would be a bit more open to understanding what players are going through.
Yeah. And do you think someone with your experience, and you've talked about your media work, is that something you could do with, sort of a mini series of?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I think it depends with regards to the clubs if you're able to go in and film. I think that's a big thing, because people don't always want to show what certain things are doing or how, because you might pick up on other things. But if you can, I genuinely think if someone's got a longer term injury, and you can sort of just document what they're doing and show their lows, because I think that will really help with the fan relating to each other. I really do.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think Cillian wants a cut of that, by the way, if it ever goes to air. So that ever comes off.
Me and you, Cillian. We'll do it.
That's it. But I think that then sort of we as was going to be a later question actually about I'll answer it as is. I mean, or should I say ask it? Do you think attitudes to players' injuries is something that needs to change? Is there something being done to highlight the mental health aspect of the injuries? And I think we've all seen the documentary Sunderland Till I Die. I think there was a few things on there that were highlighted. But yeah, I mean, what can we do? I mean, that's a great shout. I think there needs to be more around the social media.
I think because I think for me, nothing was really reported of me, which I understand, because I think Norwich were trying to sort of help me to keep me out of the thing, because I was obviously really struggling. But it sort of maybe brought up more because no one really knew anything that was going on. So they were just like, oh, what's he doing? Why is he injured all the time? What's he doing? But actually, you don't sort of see what's actually going on. So it's a bit of it's a hard one. It's a hard line to fall between, because the club are trying to protect me, but also probably trying to protect the physio department as well.
Yeah,
so it's a difficult one. But at the same time, I think if you look back, it's very different now. I think, if you'd been this like 20, 30 years ago, I think you could probably be on this, you have that vision of, players are just, they're not wanting to play. Well, I don't believe that for a second. But like nowadays, now, you cannot play professional football and not want to play football. I don't think that exists anymore. I don't think it existed. So when you're then injured, I think you players want to get back fit as quickly as possible. They'll do as much as they possibly can to maybe not skip something to get onto the next stage, but they'll just try and bypass it just because they want to get back on the field as quickly as possible. I don't think that's a difficult situation to deal with regards to player and supporters on that side of things. The issue is when they're either struggling, or they're out for a longer period of time, or they come back, get injured again, come out, get injured again. And I think players just like, oh, he's injury prone. Well, no, that's just a loose term that gets thrown around. I think it could be a contact, someone's got a kick, the next one could be something completely different. It's not injury prone. Sometimes it's a really bad luck. But you then don't see the rehab that goes through on the pitch. You don't see the rehab that goes through in their mind. Like mentally, me, I was in I talk about my experience. I was up in Norwich, not on my own, but me and my wife had just had our first child, so we had my son. So she was sort of back down south where we're from to have a bit more help. So I was up in Norwich 6 out of 7 days, pretty much on my own, injured. I couldn't walk. Walking, I was in pain. So I used to just go into training, work as hard as I possibly can on absolutely everything. I actually said this while I was at the club, because I was getting peppered. I was like, I would just love someone to come and just do what I do in one day and just see if they think that that's acceptable. Really, I think people would really struggle. But then I used to go home and then sit on the sofa and just, be in bits really, until have my food, go to bed, rinse and repeat. That was what I did. I would go back as often as I can, and my wife would come up as much. But I missed out on a lot of my son growing up for the first 2 years, just because I was being selfish. I wanted to get myself back fit. I wanted to play. Not for anyone else, but for me. But psychologically, that was awful. I was in it's a tough place to be when you're on your own, injured, in pain, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel at that point. So that is a difficult place when you're trying your best to do everything possible to get yourself back fit, and then no one's really knowing what's going on, and you're getting a bit of a tough time for something that no one actually knows what's going on about.
Yeah, we've touched a bit there on mental health, and I think you mentioned at the start that you were involved in an app.
Yeah.
Do you think clubs generally do enough on the mental side? Because I looked at Norwich now currently, and it's pretty obvious that the confidence of a lot of the players are low. And there's loads of physical coaches and physios and doctors and people training them. But do you think there's enough thought given to how people are feeling mentally?
Yeah, I think I've lived through all of it, where you don't say anything to start with. That was when I first come in. You don't say anything. If you say anything, that's you're out of the team. I think now everyone is a lot more open, and thank God they are, because it's miles better when people can actually express what they're feeling, how they're feeling, and not getting judged, and it's an improvement. The difficulty, I suppose, within football is because you're at the peak, you're at the highest point of playing, and if you've got anything that's maybe a slight doubt, then there's other players in that squad that can come in and play. So you're sort of battling that. Do I say anything because maybe I don't play, or do I say something and still play, or do I say something and then I don't play? And so you're always fighting that. And I think at Norwich, when I was there, and I was, as I said, I was going through. We did have, they have a sports psychologist in there and helping, and. I'm an open book, so I was very honest and open to speaking to them and saying, but you never really know whether you are going to speak honestly about anything anyway. So it's got to be that safe space, and I know that they will be as honest as they will. And the guy there, Gavin Drake, when I was there, he was, and I still speak to him now. Not very often, but I still every now and again speak to him, because the players need that. They need the support. They need to get stuff off their chest, because you're in this bubble. It's such a bubble where everything is magnified. Everything's prepared for the next game. And like for me, I was always chasing that. You're thinking, right, I had an injection in my ankle. And you think, right, so I've got to be off. I can't train for 2 days, but maybe that gets me to Tuesday. Right, then can I train Wednesday? Can I train Thursday? Because if I don't train Thursday, I won't be able to be in the squad on the Saturday. So you're always chasing the next thing, and to actually offload and give someone else a bit of be able to speak, and maybe speak at them, and just hear a little bit of feedback. I think is massively important to all players. And you mentioned about confidence. Confidence is very hard to give and to get. That's on my fallback was just work harder, practice more. That was always my fallback. Because if you practice and practice, then when it comes to that situation again, you've practiced it a million times and you can do it. Then it's just, can you do it under pressure? And I think there's so many different coping mechanisms, and there's so many different roles that you can do to try and be able to just go, right, I've practiced that a million times. When I go into this and I've got 30,000 people screaming and shouting, can I do it then? And that you just got to keep working on it. But confidence is a difficult thing to give.
No, absolutely. And do you think there's any way of, I don't know if simulating is the right word, but is there any way of simulating that pressure so that you can practice for it? Like I hear about snooker players, for example, who will pot a ball every time on the practice table, but then go put them out in front of an audience, and it's a lot more difficult. Pockets look smaller.
Yeah, but that's what. Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's certain things you can practice, like set pieces, penalties. There you can practice, and then you can have if you've got speakers out, you can start putting speakers out and doing that. The best time to practice is behind closed doors games or friendly games that you can really try and do that, because there's a bit more of an atmosphere. There's more on the game, but you in training you practice and there's forfeits. That's the biggest thing to try and get. So if you lose, or if you don't score, or if you don't do that, there's a forfeit, because no one wants to lose. No one wants to do like some sort of sprint or whatever it is. So you've got to put people under pressure in certain aspects, and you can do as you can do it to the best you possibly can, but you're never going to recreate walking out in front of 30,000 people on a penalty when you're 1-1 in the 97th minute, and this is to win it to get promoted to the Premier League. That's going to be really difficult to navigate. But you can do everything possible beforehand. You can do a slow walk up from the halfway line to a penalty spot with all of the players there, and this could be the winner. You can do all of that, and that is the best you can possibly do to get it to them pristine moments.
Is there anyone, obviously touching back to sort of your time at Norwich, when you were going through that sort of injury phase, is there any player, or I know you mentioned Gavin already, but is there any player that you could say would be the one that would come in and see you when you're getting your treatment and stuff, giving you that support?
Yeah, I would say, fortunately for me, but not for them, is I had two other players that were on long-term injuries, which makes a huge difference to me and to them, because we're all going through it together. So I had Louis Thompson, who re-ruptured. He'd done his Achilles and then re-ruptured it. So he knew exactly what I was going through, and I knew exactly what he was going through, because we'd been, not necessarily me with the same injury, but I knew how hard he'd worked to get himself back fit, and to then do it again, to then know what you've got to do again to get yourself back fit. So and I also had Carlton Morris as well, who'd done his ACL. So the three of us were sort of in that physio room together a lot. So there's days where we would have to go on the bike or the ski erg and do all of this fitness stuff in the afternoon after we've done everything during the day. And there's one of them that you're like, today I really don't want to do that. but the other two were having a better day. That maybe one of them, their knee was feeling better, or their Achilles was feeling better today. So they'll be like upbeat, and they'll be like, "No, come on, let's get it done. Let's go and do it." And you'd pick each other up on different days because everyone was going through a different stage of their rehab, and so you'd grind it out together. And they were really important. Maybe you don't really realize that, but they are really important because you can just chat about your injuries or chat about something else, or when you're doing a gym session, you can actually bounce off each other. Because if you're doing it on your own, it's awful, and it's so hard to get yourself motivated to do it, even though it's going to benefit you. When there's a few of you, you can actually get yourself going. And the fitness guys, Glyn, who's still there now, he was brilliant. And to be fair, the physios, as much as that is their job, that it's really difficult in times because players are particularly difficult. So for them to keep upbeat and motivated to keep getting you to do the rehab, to keep getting you to push to the next stage, and then push you onto the next stage is a full team like operation. But as you mentioned, players, I think for me, that just because I had a few players that were injured on longer term. I had Alex Pritchard as well, who was he was the start of mine, or middle of mine, sorry. So you have like Louis Thompson, Carlton Morris, and Alex Pritchard that were injured at the time that I was, which was a huge benefit to me.
Yeah, give you the support. I mean, in terms of touching like your whole career, then what would you say was the most like rewarding aspect of your career, and what makes you
boyhood dream? As a kid, everyone dreams of playing for their country, and I was able to do that. And not only do that, I was at Wembley, so it's the perfect dream as a kid, and that's something that I'll never forget. Playing for England in front of 80,000 fans. All my family there, all my friends were there. Loads of different teams: Gillingham, Wolves, West Ham fans were there. Probably Norwich fans, but they didn't know it then. Yeah. So it just that's the peak, that's the pinnacle for me. And that would be my forever.
Fantastic. And who was the manager at the time? And I should
Fabio Capello.
Was it?
No. Fabio Capello. Yeah. So top squad. If you think back to them times, the only one that wasn't there that would have been there because he was injured was Gerrard. Right. You had Lampard, you had Rooney, Ashley Cole, John Terry, all of them boys were there. So incredible squad of players. And for me, I was at Wolves at the time. So, if you look at the wingers that were there in front of me, I suppose we're all playing for top four clubs. You had Ashley Young, Stuart Downing, Theo Walcott, James Milner, Aaron Lennon. Who else was there? I think I'm not sure who else was there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but top players at top teams, all trying to play in Europe, all playing in Europe.
And how did the Wolves family, as it were, react to that? Because there wouldn't have been too many Wolves players who played for England before you.
Well, honestly, absolutely amazing. I was the first player from since Steve Bull, which was like 20 odd years, I think, or 30 years. I can't remember. So they were amazing, incredible, absolutely incredible. Because when we were in the Premier League, we were struggling, fighting relegation for the first 3 years, but for them to be, so many of the fans were there because they were wanting to support me as a Wolves player, just so absolutely amazing. And then Connor Cody played for them after me, so I was a bit gutted. No, I'm only joking. He's an absolute top player.
I don't think I've ever spoke to anyone that's played internationally for England. Trying to think if I have. Obviously, AD was at Northern Ireland, wasn't he, Cillian? Sorry. Talk us through what that sort of first training session was like, and no, actually, let's rewind. Talk us through when you first found out about it and how that happened, and then that first day.
Okay. I'll do the short version. So we played in the early kickoff on the Saturday, Wolves against Aston Villa, and it was we won 1-0. I scored a volley, and it was the first time that Wolves had beaten Aston Villa in about 25 years at Villa
I'm
Park.
not, there's a
Something like that.
fair bit of rivalry between those two, I'd say.
Well, absolutely. That's why it was a big game. And then I went home because it was the early kickoff. I went home. I come back up Sunday night, just got into my kitchen, and I got a text message. And I was like, I looked at it and it was like, you've been called up for England, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I'm not like, I was like, was amazing. But then I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Because I know that there's a few players that have been done by having a text message thinking they're getting called up. So I wasn't sure. But then I got a call about a minute later from someone at the FA to basically say that, I have been called up and you'll need your passport. You're going to get picked up tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And I just remember, and then they were like, oh, I think you've got about 45 minutes before it gets announced or something like that. And I was just like, wow, like this was just incredible. Because I knew I was in the preliminary squads for the last few squads, but to then get that and then trying to tell everyone, I called my mum, nothing, called my dad, nothing, called the house phone, nothing.
Yeah.
Spoke to my brother, he picked up straight away. Then my wife was there with me. She spoke to her family. And then I ended up calling like an Indian restaurant that I knew my mum and dad used to go to, and the guy answered, and I was just like, oh, my mum and dad, they're like, yeah. I said, oh, could you put them on the phone? So they got up and said to it, I told them there. So just amazing, just
Brilliant.
getting that phone call. But then the next day, I suppose it's a bit more of a reality check because I didn't there was no players that I played with as in like on a team before. So I played against them all, obviously, but I don't know any of them personally. So it was like first day back at school vibes. I don't know where to sit, don't know where to sit on the bus. Where do I sit in the canteen? It was just that weird, but they were brilliant. And you're just desperate for training to start because you've got, media, there's so much going on. But when you can just get onto the training field, then you just feel much more relaxed and get that first pass and first touch. But I was just like, I thought if I go into the, the rondo, I might not get back out, but it was all right. It was fine, but fantastic. What a, really top group of players. And obviously for me personally, to get called up by Fabio Capello with his, I suppose career and experience in all different clubs to get called up by him was a true honour. Yeah.
Do you have much interaction with him on during that trip?
No, not really. He didn't speak too much English.
He wasn't English, wasn't
No,
yeah.
But no, just to be honest, it was just amazing to be able to then train with the squad, to be called up by him, but also the players that are there when you're playing or you're involved in training, you can see what people and how they train and what they do to just sort of live with that, to then have the experience of just the downtime with them, and then obviously traveling to we played Wales away, so we travelled there and then we come back, and then we had the game at Wembley. So it was just the whole vibe, I think it was about 10, 12 days, something like that was the trip.
Yeah.
So yeah, an amazing experience. Amazing.
That's brilliant. I think just before Cillian asks the last question, I just wanted to get your spin on the manager merry-go-round, shall we call it, at West Ham, Wolves and Norwich. So perhaps if we just talk about, let's go chronologically. So if we start with West Ham, obviously Nuno Espirito Santo is in there now. Did well at Wolves, I think, funnily enough. And I think if he was given more time at Spurs, I think he'd have done okay there. Obviously got Forest to Europe. Do you think he'll make the difference for West Ham this season?
Yes, is short answer. Yes, I do. I think, his experience and what he does with his squad of players, you mentioned Wolves, he was outstanding at Wolves, but I think he maybe just got them to a point that was as best or as far as they could go. He obviously got the Spurs job, but as you mentioned, that just we sort of glide past that one because it was short lived. But also, I just don't think that was ever. It was one of them appointments. I don't think it was ever going to work. And a little bit like Ange at Forest, I don't think it was ever going to work. But what he did at Forest was nothing short of a miracle. Really, they were odds on to go down. All of them, 30 odd players that they signed, and then to try and squash them all into one team and make them play. was phenomenal. So, and I think he is exactly what West Ham needs this season. You know, they've gone from David Moyes, where it was super defensive. They sort of grounded out results, did incredibly well, won the trophy, and then you're like, right, we're changing it, and it's going to be. It's weird, isn't it? It's like Wolves and West Ham. They've had a bit of a shift of Lopetegui to start with, and that just didn't work. They're thinking it's going to be the expansive playing football, and it just didn't work. To then go to Graham Potter, who, you know, a fantastic guy, really lovely guy, and you're just desperate for him to do well, I suppose. And just, I think again, it was probably just not quite right, as much as everyone wanted it to work. But Nuno is perfect. You know, I think the way he's going to set the team up, you've already seen they've had 2 big wins on the bounce, Newcastle and then Burnley, you know, 2 big wins. And that was down to a solid, as much as, you know, they can, a solid defence. And then they've got players that can attack. And that's what he did with Forest. You know, they were solid at the back, and then they counter really well. They've got strikers, they've got wingers. And I think that's exactly what they can do again at West Ham with Bowen, Somerville, Paqueta, and, you know, Callum Wilson at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously what happened at Wolves this week with Rob Edwards going in, someone that I know quite well with his time at Luton. What were your thoughts with that one? Because obviously he's a Wolves legend, right? So do you think he'll have the success there that he probably didn't at Luton?
Well, I think he had an incredible success at Luton to start with. You know, what an incredible journey that was. And I think the biggest thing that you see from his teams, especially, you know, in the promotion season and the first season in the Premier League, where, yes, they did get relegated at the end, but that whole season you saw a desire, you saw a commitment, the togetherness of a team and as players. And I think that's his big strength. I played with Robert at Wolves at the time, so I know him well. He was unfortunately injured at the time when I first went there. And, you know, I know what a professional he is, what a genuine person he is. And I think that, yes, he won't be able to change the team as such at Wolves, but what he can do is change the mentality, change the togetherness and the desire to work for each other. I think that's been a missing link for this season with Wolves. I think they've just come unstuck this year with regards to maybe transfers. They haven't really bought anyone that's played in the Premier League. They've been doing that for the last few years, and they've sort of got away with it. They've sold their star players, and it's a difficult situation to go into. Will he be successful? That's a very, very good question, because they're not in a very good position, put it that way. There's 2 points after 11 games. So whoever was going to go in, Carlo Ancelotti going in, is going to be a difficult position to be in. So, I wish him well. He's a top guy. And he's done really well. And you're hoping that he can steady the ship, because they've got some terrible fixtures coming up as well, to get to January, to hopefully be able to get a few additions in to try and change it up. But you've got to keep yourself in touch at that end of the table, and at the moment they're starting to get adrift.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right to sort of caveat that at the start with Luton, because I mean, the job he did to get them in the Premier League in the first place was nothing short of a miracle. So, and then finally with Norwich, we're as we discussed at the outset of this this episode, we haven't got a manager at the moment. Have you sort of kept up to date with what's going on there, and who would be your pick? I guess.
Who would be my pick? That is a very difficult one. I always keep an eye on Norwich, because, you know, as much as it was a difficult time for me personally, I loved it as a club, and obviously the players, and I still know a lot of the staff there. So I always want them to do well, and I keep an eye on it. So it's a struggle. It's disappointing to see them where they are at the moment. So I hope whoever goes in is going to be able to turn this round. I'm not expecting them to get promoted this season, but I'm expecting them to at least have a decent run and get back to winning games of football. The squad of players is still good enough to do that. Whether it's a British manager or whether it's not is is not up to me. But I think there's an argument for both, because you look at what's happened in the past. Daniel Farke was done incredibly well. I was there, didn't really play under him, but I was there at his time. Everyone didn't really think that was going to work at the start. I think he had 4 games when he was in the between October and November international break. And we had 4 games. I think we had Millwall away, we had Ipswich, and we had 2 others. And it was like, really, I mean, not that we really knew, I suppose, at the time as players, but you were like, these games are really important, because I think if didn't really pick up good points and then 4, I think he could have gone. But he won quite a few, and then that was it. That was a turning point, and then it just didn't look back. And he was outstanding. But I really liked Alex Neil, playing for Alex Neil. I thought he was excellent. So you've got that, and they were 2 complete contrasts as managers as well. So it works with some, it works with others, and I think you've got to look at the players and how, as a club, how are they wanting to play? How are they wanting to line up? How are they wanting the formation? How are they wanting to play? And then you can pick your manager on that. Who do you 2 want?
Have you any thoughts, Matt, though, on sacked managers? Like a couple of the people who we've been linked to, whether it happens or not, John Dowell Thomason and Will Still and Gary O'Neill, as examples, have all been sacked from previous jobs. I mean, does that matter?
No, every manager gets sacked from their previous job, pretty much. There's not many that do a Rod Edwards and sort of then decide to leave. So you're always going to have a manager that's been sacked. Gary O'Neill. I've played with him at 2 Norwich and at West Ham. I know him as and what he's done as a manager has been great. He's got an affiliation at the club as well, potentially. Don't know if he's looking to get in at Norwich or not, but I think you've got to have. You're going to always get pinpointed when the manager goes to similar sort of mold of manager. But I think Norwich have done in the past have been like, as I said, from an Alex Neil to a Daniel Farke, who was a 23s manager or 21s manager at Dortmund. So they've taken risks and they've got their rewards in the past, and it is a really, really big decision.
I think this is probably the biggest decision of the last probably since, I'm trying to think now, a long time, basically, because where we are in the league now, this has to be right. So I think that when you talk about risks, Matt, I think we've been able to take the risks previously on people like Daniel Farke, because it's at the start of the season where it may have gone wrong and then we would have remedied it. But we're now in a position where if he gets this wrong, we are screwed, basically. We'll go to League One. So I think it's really important that they get this right. I mean, a couple of names Cillian mentioned was John Dale Thomason, serial winner. Okay, not in England, but he's won the Champions League. Did well at Blackburn when he was there. Obviously, the old Sweden manager. I think he, out of all the ones that they're sort of touting at the moment, he'd probably be the one that I would like the most. I mean, Gary O'Neill, yes. Obviously, I know you played with him twice. Did well at Bournemouth. Did well at Wolves as well. But that was in the Premier League. So is that going to be the same in the Championship? I don't know. So I mean, out of all of the names mentioned, there would be my 2 choices. Michael Carrick as well. But I think Cillian made a point about managers getting the sack. I mean, extend on that a little bit in the sense that Will Still only recently got the sack, as did Russell Martin. So do these managers need time to almost reflect on why that was, if that makes sense? Because you're right, every manager does.
I do think some managers like to have a bit of time off, and I think others like to just jump straight back into it because they have that instant bit, right, I know what I need to do, that I need to, and you want to jump straight back into it. I think sometimes it is good to have a little bit of time out. Not that I've done it, but I just think that it's probably good to have a little bit of reflection and think, actually maybe, because it's all consuming. As a manager, it's 24/7. Every single decision is going to be scrutinised. Everything's going to be the most important decision, whether that's just picking for one game. That is the most important game. So it takes over your life, and that's with regards to family. That's with regards to anything. You put everything to the side and focus on the manager's job. So some people can just do that, and other people will need to have a little bit of time out to then go, okay, right, we've taken a bit of time, we've gone off and watched other coaches how they do things and gone and seen other things, and then to be like, right, I'm ready to get back in. So I really hope that Norwich get the right person. Excellent.
Cillian, over to you. Are you comfortable doing a Morgan style random question of the week?
I can try it. I haven't prepared, so my singing voice is not great, but I'll give it a go. So
you've got to turn the chair around as well, because he always turns the chair around. So. Yeah, good luck, Matt.
Yeah.
Random question of the week. Matt, you played one game for England. If you had to pick another international team to have played for and a player to play alongside, what team and player would it have been?
Good question.
Oh, it's a great question. Do you know how many different countries? When you said team, I had a few teams going, and then when you said player, I was like, oh, that changed a few teams actually.
Okay.
If I'm completely honest. I think for me, I would probably have to say Portugal and Ronaldo.
Okay.
Yes, it's the Messi and Ronaldo thing, but I've always really, because he's done it in all these different leagues, and I just think the dedication and maybe people think of him as vain and all of this, but what he's dedicated his life to playing football, his recovery, his everything, and I just think if you want one person in one game, and to be able to be alongside and just see that and live it and breathe it, I would probably say him.
Good shout. Cillian, what about yourself?
What about me? Well, I certainly wouldn't be at the level of Matt's football, so I'd probably have to pick a team like Andorra or somewhere. If I could imagine that I was good enough to play in the team, and with a player, I think I would be I'd have to reflect my age, which is a bit older than both of you. So I would say probably Germany and Jurgen Klinsmann. I think
good shout.
I was impressed with his goal scoring ability.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I've been to Malta enough times now that I could probably class myself as a citizen, so I might get a call up for Malta. I would probably go a little bit. I don't know if it is left field, but France and Zinedine Zidane, because the type of player I was, he was a player. He was probably my favourite ever, and I think he is up there as probably one of the better players or best players of all time that I've certainly witnessed. But the sort of player I was a centre forward, so I was always looking for that ball in between the defenders and to run onto. I know you probably wouldn't believe it now looking at me, but that was the sort of the ball that I thrived upon. I was so having him in the team, I think he'd always find me and find that killer ball. So
he certainly would.
That'd be my answer. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Is there anyone or anything that you'd just like to thank or plug, I guess, before we finish?
Plug. I've mentioned the sports psychology app, so that is called Unlock. So have a little look at that, and you can see that on my socials. Heritage Golf and Apex Golf is the golfing company, and then follow my socials. That's about it, really.
Fantastic, and thanks once again, Cillian, for jumping in as well today. It's been a pleasure.
Been likewise.
Thanks everyone. For everyone else watching, like and subscribe on our channel for more great content. You can also follow us at all of our social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, X. I always forget TikTok. Cillian, I'll need to go and do some dancing on that at some point. And also, thanks to our partners, Master Seal, Pie Design, and we are proudly part of the TalkSport Fan Network. Thanks, everyone. I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Cillian O'Grady.
And I've been Matt Jarvis.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.